After my surgery, I overheard my husband telling his family, "She's broken. She's nothing left." They laughed about me while I struggled to walk again. But what they didn't know was that the insurance check and an $11 million settlement had just cleared into my account. And when I stood up in court, their faces froze. Before I share what happened next, make sure you subscribe to the channel and tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I love hearing from all of you. My name is Clara Mitchell, and just a year ago, I thought I had the life I always wanted. I was 34, married, and working as a nurse. I loved my job, I loved being active, and I believed my husband, Ryan, was the partner I could always count on. My family means everything to me. My mom, Helen, is the kind of person who brings warmth into any room. My dad, Michael, has always been calm and steady, reminding me that no matter what happens, I have a safe place to fall. My younger sister, Emily, is fiery and outspoken, the one who never lets anyone push me around. I thought I had the perfect balance, my family supporting me and Ryan by my side. Then everything changed. I was injured at work and needed surgery. The pain was overwhelming and the recovery was slow. Suddenly, I went from being the one who cared for others to the one who needed care. I felt vulnerable and scared. But I told myself that Ryan would be there for me. I believed that this was when our vows in sickness and in health would mean the most. In the beginning, I leaned on him heavily. I couldn't drive. I needed help around the house, and I hated feeling like a burden. Every time I saw the frustration in his eyes, I told myself it was just stress that he would adjust. I thought if I stayed patient, things would get better. But instead of comfort, I started to feel distance. His words became sharper, his patience shorter. Still, I held on to hope. I tried to believe that my husband, the man I had trusted with my life, would never turn his back on me. I had no idea how wrong I was. Recovery after surgery was one of the hardest things I had ever gone through. The pain was constant, and even the smallest movements felt like climbing a mountain. I couldn't drive, couldn't cook, and some days I could barely get out of bed without help. I hated needing to depend on anyone. But I told myself that Ryan and I were in this together. Isn't that what marriage was supposed to mean? At first, I thought he was just stressed. He would sigh loudly when I asked him to bring me something. He would roll his eyes when I struggled to walk across the room. But I convinced myself it was temporary, that he just needed time to adjust. I clung to the hope that his love would outweigh his frustration. Then one night lying in bed, I heard him in the kitchen on the phone. I wasn't trying to listen, but his voice carried through the walls, and what I heard made my heart stop. "She's broken," Ryan said, his tone flat and cold. "She has nothing left. I can't believe this is my life now. I should have married someone who could actually keep up with me." There was laughter on the other end. It was his mother, Margaret. I could almost hear her smile through the phone when she answered. "I told you, Ryan, she was never good enough for you. Now she's just a burden." My stomach twisted. I felt like the air had been knocked out of me. This wasn't just frustration. This was cruelty. This was betrayal. The man who vowed to love me through sickness and health was mocking me with his family, treating me like dead weight. The next day, Margaret came by with Ryan's brother, Dylan. I tried to keep things polite, but the look in their eyes was different now. They didn't see me as family. They saw me as something to laugh at. When I struggled to stand up with my walker, Dylan chuckled and said, "Careful there. Don't want you falling apart again." Margaret smirked, adding, "Ryan deserves someone strong, not someone he has to babysit." I felt my cheeks burn, but I kept silent. Inside, though, their words cut deeper than the stitches in my body. I wanted to scream, to defend myself, but I didn't have the strength. All I could do was endure it. That became the pattern. Every visit, they would find new ways to remind me I wasn't enough. Margaret would glance around my house and make snide comments like, Poor Ryan living like this. Dylan would laugh about me, milking the injury for attention. And Ryan, he never defended me. Sometimes he even laughed along. At night, I would cry quietly, trying not to let anyone hear me. I wasn't just in pain from my surgery anymore. I was in pain from betrayal. My husband, the man I trusted most, had become my biggest source of hurt. I wondered if maybe they were right. Maybe I was broken. Maybe I had nothing left. But deep down, a part of me resisted. I had worked hard my whole life. I had taken care of patients, supported my family, and fought for everything I had. I wasn't broken. I was injured, yes, but I was healing. And one day I knew I would stand again. During one of their visits, Margaret leaned in close as Ryan walked out of the room and whispered, "Do yourself a favor, Clara. Sign the divorce papers when they come. Spare him the trouble." Then she patted my hand like she had just done me a kindness. That was the moment something inside me shifted. The humiliation, the mockery, the betrayal. It was building into something stronger. I didn't show it, but in my heart, a quiet fire had started to burn. What none of them knew was that behind the scenes, my lawyer had been working on my injury case. The hospital had admitted fault, and the settlement was nearing completion. $11 million enough to rebuild my life in any way I chose. I hadn't told Ryan, and I certainly hadn't told his family. To them, I was broken and worthless. To me, I was about to step into the most powerful position of my life. Their laughter still echoed in my ears, but instead of crushing me, it fueled me. Every cruel word was another reason to re-say. They thought I was powerless, but they were about to learn just how wrong they were. The morning my lawyer called, I was sitting in the kitchen slowly sipping tea, still sore from therapy exercises. When I answered, his voice was steady but filled with excitement. "Clara, it's done. The insurance check is cleared and the settlement is finalized. $11 million has been transferred to your account." For a moment, I just sat there in silence, gripping the phone tighter. 11 million. The number echoed in my head, unreal and overwhelming. I had been preparing myself for something life-changing, but hearing it confirmed felt like the world had shifted beneath me. I looked down at my hands, the same hands Marguerite had called useless. The same hands Ryan had brushed away when I reached for him. Those hands now held more financial power than his entire family ever imagined. I thanked my lawyer and hung up, my heart racing. My first instinct was to call my mom. I wanted to hear her voice, to feel that unconditional support I knew she would give. She picked up quickly. "Clara, are you all right?" I smiled through the phone. "Better than all right. It's done, Mom." 11 million. It's in my account. Her gasp was followed by silence, then tears. "Oh, honey. I knew something good would come out of this pain. I'm so proud of you." It told her not to share the news yet. It needed to decide how and when to use this truth. She agreed, though I could hear the pride in her voice, as she promised to keep it quiet. That night, Ryan came home from work with his usual detached expression. He barely asked about my day, just tossed his keys on the counter and went straight to his phone. I watched him from across the room, realizing how much had changed. A year ago, I would have run to greet him, eager to share every detail of my life. Now, I sat in silence, studying him like a stranger. He had no idea that while he saw me as a burden, I had just been handed complete independence. I made my decision then. I wasn't going to confront him in our home. He was too practiced at brushing me off, too skilled at twisting things into his favor. If I wanted him and his family to finally see me, it had to be in a place where they couldn't escape the truth. A place where their arrogance would meet its match. And there was no better stage than the courtroom where my settlement was finalized. The next morning, I led my lawyer back. "I want them there," I said firmly. "I want Ryan and his family to be present at the final settlement hearing." He paused for a moment. "Are you sure this is your case?" You don't have to involve them." "I'm sure," I replied. "They think I'm broken. I want them to see just how wrong they're." The days leading up to the hearing were filled with quiet preparation. I kept going to physical therapy, pushing myself harder than ever. Every step I took without support felt like a victory. I started choosing clothes carefully, planning what I would wear to court. Something simple but strong, something that would make me feel like the woman I had always been, not the broken version they tried to label me as. My family became my rock. My sister, Emily, was the fiercest. "Make them choke on their own words," she told me. "Hear ye's blazing." My dad was calmer, but his words carried weight. "Dignity is your real weapon, Clara. Don't lower yourself to their cruelty. Show them with your strength." At night, I would sit in bed and replay everything Ryan and his family had said to me. The laughter, the insults, the whispered suggestions to leave. Each memory hurt, but instead of breaking me, they fueled me. I imagined the look on their faces when the truth was laid out in black and white. One evening, Ryan walked into the room while I was balancing my checkbook. He glanced at the screen, uninterested, and said, "You really should let me handle the money from now on. You're not exactly in the best shape to be making decisions." I smiled faintly and shut the laptop. "Don't worry, I said softly. "I can handle myself." He smirked and walked away, never suspecting what was coming. By the time the court date arrived, I was ready. I wasn't nervous. I wasn't scared. I was steady, stronger than I'd felt in months. The cruelty of Ryan and his family had pushed me into a corner. But instead of breaking, I had found my power there. And now I was about to step out of that corner and into the light in front of them all. The morning of the hearing, I woke up before sunrise. For weeks I had been preparing for this day, and now it was here. I dressed slowly, carefully. I chose a dark blue dress, modest but strong, paired with simple flats that would let me walk without struggle. My walker stood nearby, but I pushed it aside. I'd been practicing every day, step by step. And today, I would walk on my own. Not perfectly, not gracefully, but proudly. My parents came to pick me up, their quiet support filling the silence on the ride to the courthouse. My dad drove calm as always, while my mom squeezed my hand from the passenger seat. "Remember," she whispered, "today isn't about them. It's about your claiming yourself." When we arrived, Ryan and his family were already there. Margaret, his mother, wore a smug smile, dressed in a tailored cream suit that screamed power. Dylan, his younger brother, leaned back in his chair with arms crossed, smirking like the whole thing was a joke. And Ryan, my husband, looked relaxed, even confident, as though he was about to win something. The sight of them tightened my chest, but I straightened my back. They thought I was walking into this hearing as their victim. They had no idea. We all filed into the courtroom, and the judge called the case to order. The room was filled with the quiet shuffle of papers and the faint hum of whispered conversations. My lawyer began with the details, laying out the facts of my injury, the surgery, and the settlement agreement that had been reached. Ryan leaned toward his mother, whispering something that made her chuckle. I knew they were expecting me to look weak, to stumble, or cry to prove their point that I was broken. Then came the moment the judge cleared his throat and said, "The settlement amount of $11 million will be transferred directly into Mrs. Mitchell's personal account, effective immediately. This is in recognition of her suffering, lost wages, and long-term impact of her injury." For a second, silence filled the room. Then I stood slowly, carefully. I rose from my seat and straightened my spine. My legs shook, but I steadied them. Every eye in the courtroom turned to me. I walked forward one step then another without the walker, without anyone's arm to lean on. My movements were not perfect, but they were mine. With each step, I felt years of humiliation falling away. I reached the center of the courtroom and turned to face Ryan and his family. You said I was broken, I said, my voice clear and steady. You told your family I had nothing left, and you all laughed while I suffered. Margaret's face stiffened, her lips pressed into a thin line. Dylan shifted uncomfortably, his smirk fading. Ryan froze, his mouth slightly open, no words coming out. I held up the settlement documents in my hand. Today the truth is clear. I am not broken. I am not worthless. I stand here with 11 million reasons to never need you again. The room was dead silent. Even the judge looked taken back by the sharpness of my words. Ryan finally tried to speak, his voice cracking. Clara, I didn't mean it like that. I shook my head. Yes, you did. Every word, and your mother encouraged it. Your brother laughed at it. You all thought you could break me, but you can't. Gasps rippled through the courtroom as I placed the papers back on the table and turned toward the judge. I will be filing for divorce immediately, I announced, and I want it on record that I will not be financially dependent on Ryan Mitchell or his family in any way. I don't need them. Margaret's face drained of color. The smug smile she always carried. The air of superiority she wore like a crown was gone. Dylan stared at the floor, no longer laughing. And Ryan, my husband, the man I had once loved, looked smaller than I had ever seen him, his confidence collapsing under the weight of his own cruelty. I walked back to my seat, each step steady, each breath stronger than the last. My lawyer gave me a small nod of respect, and my family's eyes filled with pride. When the hearing ended, I didn't wait for Ryan to speak. I gathered my things and walked out of the courtroom with my parents by my side. I passed Ryan's family. I caught Margaret's eyes one last time. For the first time since I had known her, she looked powerless. Outside the courthouse, the sun hit my face, warm and freeing. I breathed deeply, feeling lighter than I had in months. I hadn't just won a settlement. I had won back my dignity. Walking out of that courthouse, I felt like I was breathing fresh air for the first time in months. The weight I had carried, the humiliation, the betrayal, the endless whispers of broken and worthless was gone. In its place was something I hadn't felt in a long time: strength. Not the kind of strength that comes from money alone, but the kind that comes from surviving the fire and walking out stronger. Ryan tried calling me later that evening. I didn't answer. He left a voicemail that started with excuses, then shifted to apologies and ended with begging. We can work this out, Clara. Don't throw everything away over a few words. You know, I didn't mean it, but I knew better. He had meant every word when he mocked me with his family. His true self had been exposed in my weakest moment. And if he couldn't love me when I was down, then he didn't deserve to love me when I rose back up. I filed for divorce that week. It was quick, clean, and final. I didn't ask for a dime from him. I didn't need to. I had already secured my independence. And more importantly, I had secured my dignity. Margaret tried reaching out through mutual friends, spinning stories about how I had embarrassed them all, how I had been ungrateful to the Coleman family. I didn't respond. For once, her words no longer had power over me. My focus turned back to my family, the ones who had lifted me up when I was at my lowest. My mom hugged me one evening and whispered, "You're not broken. You were just bent for a while and you came back stronger." My dad, never one for long speeches, simply said, "Respect is worth more than wealth, and you proved that." Today, Emily, my fiery younger sister, told me, "You made them choke on their own cruelty." I've never been prouder. Their love had been my foundation, and now I had the chance to give back. With part of the settlement, I decided to start something new. I opened a foundation to support people recovering from workplace injuries, especially those who felt powerless like I once did. I wanted to give them not just financial help, but also encouragement, guidance, and a reminder that they were not alone. Every time I spoke to someone who felt hopeless, I told them, Your worth isn't measured by what others say about you. Your strength is still inside you, even if you can't see it yet. The rest of the money I invested wisely, choosing stability over flash. I didn't need designer clothes or luxury cars to prove anything. I had lived through the sharp edge of arrogance, and I never wanted to become like those who mocked me. What I valued now was freedom. The freedom to walk away. The freedom to choose peace over chaos. The freedom to build a life on my own terms. Ryan and his family faded into the background of my life like shadows that had once loomed large but no longer held shape. Occasionally, I would hear from acquaintances that Margaret still complained about me at social gatherings. She thinks she won. They said she'd mutter. The truth is, I didn't just think I won. I knew I had. Not because of the settlement, not because of the money, but because I refused to let their cruelty define me. When I look back on those painful months, I no longer feel bitterness. Instead, I feel gratitude. I learned who truly loved me. I learned that sometimes betrayal reveals the truth you've been too blind to see. And I learned that even in your weakest moment, you can find the strength to rise. The lesson I carry with me, and the one I want to leave with you, is simple. Never let anyone convince you that you are broken beyond repair. You may bend, you may fall, but you can always stand again. Respect and dignity are not gifts someone else gives you. They are choices you make for yourself, even when others try to take them away. I walked into that courtroom carrying pain, but I walked out carrying freedom, and that to me was worth more than $1 million. Thank you so much for listening to my story. If it inspired you, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I love hearing your voices from all around the world.